let's roll. Platform the people already pulled up. You guys are sick, man. We're gonna fill the main hoops contest. I mean, it might almost already be 98.6. We got to just keep cramming here and talk about it on the fly because this is wild, man. This is wild to see. I know that the team has been releasing them slightly earlier than usual, but man, hoops getting filled this early in the day, just incredible. Um, I will throw on a little bit of background music just so it's not so stale. But we're gonna do hoops. We're gonna rip a couple of these on the fly. When this contest closes, we'll talk through it a little bit more. You guys can see my rankings. My rankings are right down there. I think there's some really interesting talking points on the slate. Obviously, with Devin Booker and Bradley Beal with the D tags. Reminder: D tags, not out tags. Yes, I have taken them. Yes, I will be that guy putting in 40 50 entries in this. I'm not going to get to 150. I wasn't drafting a ton last night, but I'm that guy, man. You want some leverage over the field? Well, let me tell you, Devin Booker in the last round with a Fugazi injury on an island game, yeah, that status can flip on its head at 1:30 p.m. Eastern when the injury reports come out. Man, I'm not going to put it past teams to do that. The other gal brain side of that, it's extreme. It's extreme, but the other gal brain side of it is the Lakers being as old as they are and whatnot, that they just go ahead and look at that injury report and go, yeah, LeBron, take a seat today, man. So for me, I've been prioritizing Kevin Durant over the Lakers guys and Dame over LeBron specifically. So as you guys can see with my rankings here, the 104 is really advantageous because you can go ahead and double tap these things. But in my last kind of 10-ish drafts, I was flipping the board and taking Durant 101. I think if both those guys sit and you just kind of look at the cast of characters that Phoenix is going to run out tonight alongside them, like Grayson Allen starting, Eric Gordon and or Jordan Goodwin starting, something like that. I mean, the projection that you could hypothetically give Durant is astronomical. And all of these drafts look the exact same because nobody lets LeBron fall past the 6. And the first decision point is at the 7-8, whether you take Yusuf or Maxi, right? And I've been taking Maxi. I've been mixing it. I'm not going to lie. I've been mixing it, but I've been taking more Maxi than Yusuf just because we know what Maxi's usage looks like without Harden. So there's not a ton of value open on the Bucks side, and all the kind of like minutes and opportunity and value that opens up is in the Phoenix game and in a little bit in the Philadelphia game with the absence of Harden. This for me has been some combination of Brooks and Melton. I have Brooks. I have Middleton kind of pushed down. Middleton's going to be on a minutes restriction. I will pull up, some of my notes here in real time and whatnot. And I was just kind of like looking through this sort of stuff. I mean, Middleton, this Bucks team has championship aspirations. It has best team in the East aspirations, right? And they are not going to run Middleton full bore as it starts. And as the coach is quote right down here, Griffin's quote is, we have to be smart. Going from 12 minutes to 35 is probably not a smart thing to do right now. And that was via the Athletic there. So, I mean, I think Middleton's going to be on like a legit minutes restriction. The reason he says 12 is Middleton played 12 in the last preseason game. So I think it's just something to be mindful in terms of like when we're splitting hairs with some of these razor thin decisions late. I have Bobby Portis pushed down. Maybe I should have him a little bit higher up if I don't think the Middleton minutes are going to be great. Because Bobby Portis is just, every time he starts, it's double machine. He's not going to start tonight. That's for damn sure. But if he plays extended minutes off the bench because Middleton's are limited or somebody's in foul trouble, I could see that. We'll talk through some more of like the matchup stuff and kind of some of the macro stuff. Nobody's scrolling, man. Nobody is scrolling. It's a really condensed pool. Um, that being said, I'm not going to scroll here because my kind of like stopgap uh, is kind of like Grayson Allen and this tier. I think Malik Beasley starts tonight. I think there is a case to be made by pushing him up here. Rui's an interesting one because when Rui gets hot, they let him run, and Prince was just hot in game one, so they let him run. I think it's amazing how fast we lose sight of just because of the box score. I mean, Rui was probably, in my estimation, a better play than Prince last game, and we're kind of just all not taking him. Let's just go. We got to take Rui here now that I'm just singing his praises there. I can't be a fraud. Let's mix in a little bit of Rui. But man, there are some very interesting plays back here. I haven't seen a single person take PJ Tucker. He is a terrible fantasy point per minute producer, but could PJ Tucker find his way to like 3 stocks guarding like Giannis? Yeah, probably. Like he could just find his way into like a couple steals. The blocks won't be there, but you could find his way into like a couple steals and matter on a slate that's this small. It's extremely thin, but just pointing out the fact that like nobody's taking him, but people are, willy-nilly. The Pat Beverly projections come down, but people are willy-nilly just clicking Pat Bev over and over and over again. So yeah, it's interesting. Ethan saying you just got the coveted Durant AD start. I only got one of those in my bag right now. Yeah, Nick pointing out the Eubanks one. I mean, Eubanks looked nice last game, man. Like Eubanks looked really nice last game. I'm not gonna lie. Um, the problem is he's like a definitive backup five, right? Like that's where the role's capped. I think the minutes are capped. Like you need Nurk to get into foul trouble. You need something like that. Um, yeah, no, I definitely agree with this. Like B-Boy Paul, just in terms of like production and fantasy point per minute and what we've seen of Embiid the last couple of years where he just comes in out of shape. Like you think this guy comes in after an MVP year and he's like ready to go tonight for like 43 minutes or whatever. At least I've seen it with KD thus far, and now the usage is there. I don't think KD 101 is like all that crazy comparative, but like, yeah, I mean, we've seen it with B-Ball Paul before where he just, if he gets out there because of foul trouble, I don't think they run, two bigs tonight. It's just like the wrong matchup against like Brook Lopez and Giannis. Like Giannis is just such a freak. Like you need someone who can run with him. I don't think you could possibly go two bigs tonight and think you can run with Giannis. I think it's going to be the PJ Tucker show on the defensive side of the ball. And, if he happens to fall into a 3 or 2 and a couple stocks, he could matter. But yeah, Paul Reed early in the season, like not a bad play at all. The problem is the same narrative can be spun as the Eubanks one, where it's just pure backup 5 minutes, right? Yeah. This is kind of like how the majority of these drafts go. So the big decision points on the slate for me right now is, do you want to get crazy and flip the board? Do you want to do something crazy in the 6th round, like take a Devin Booker, take a Bradley Beal? I was talking to Nez before last night a bit. His gal brain was that Beal has a better shot of playing tonight because it's not a real injury or whatever, in quotations. It was like a back thing and whatnot. And just the way the statuses dropped off last game prior to tip, he feels that like Beal was. I was on the opposite side of the equation. I think Booker has a better shot at playing tonight, but it's extremely thin and it's only for the 150 guys to be mixing in like 10 of them because I think you want exposure to it. And there's nobody else who's going to swap. So when we get mid-season and we're looking at these contests and we have some Q tags in the slate that matter, and we go, oh yeah, at least if something crazy happened with Devin Booker late in the day, he could swap in. Well, there's no one he could possibly swap in to unless there's like a late illness scratch or something like that on this slate. So I think just being mindful of it and getting ahead on like 1 or 2 of them is pretty sharp. That being said, the contest is gone. So you guys are sick, man. I mean, here we are before 11 a.m. Pacific time. Old John Boy is barely rub the sleep out of his eyes here, and you guys have already filled my contest. So, I mean, pretty sick there. Let me pull up a couple things I wanted to talk through here. Get the popcorn machine out here. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Jordan Goodwin starts tonight. You know, the the one that's interesting with Goodwin is just like he was on the worst basketball team in the East last year, and he was basically just an emergency point guard for like when everyone was out. Avdia was out, when Kuzma was out, when Beal was out, blah blah blah. He was like this emergency start guy. I mean, I'm not writing off the fact that he could be a good player in this league at because he's only 24 and a half or whatever, but I don't think it's as certain as everybody thinks, just based on what we saw usage wise in the first game. He didn't close. He was a pure off the bench guy. Grayson Allen started instead of both him and Eric Gordon. Eric Gordon wound up playing more minutes than Grayson Allen. So, I mean, Grayson Allen just didn't play particularly well, and he was invisible out there and afraid to shoot. But, maybe that's what happens with island game, new team, blah, blah, blah. Because if Grayson Allen isn't shooting the ball when he's open, there's literally 0% reason to have him on the floor ever. Yeah. Anyways, it's just interesting. Like I think there's a lot of players here in this player pool at the back end, and everybody's prioritizing that little bit of projection, that little 2 point extra projection. Because if we look at here's stochastics stuff. Um, like we're talking about the difference between like Rui and what if it's Sabian Lee who plays some backup point guard minutes, or even I mean I don't think he starts over Goodwin, but like let's just say something like that happens. Or what if Jay Crowder plays more minutes tonight than Portis and Middleton, because let's not say blowout run because I don't like to paint that narrative, but let's just say because Middleton's not up to speed and they want to reduce his minutes, and there's a 10-point spread in the game, they go with Jay Crowder. Nobody's drafting these guys, and the leverage you can get, because the difference of like 4 points in your 6th round pick will make or break this slate when everybody's doing the exact same thing at the top of the board. Like the most common start in the world is just 1-0-1. You go Embiid, Nurk, D'Angelo Russell. That combination, that 1-2-3, is going to be repeated 1,000 times in maybe not. Let me think. Yeah, it's probably going to be close to repeated like 1,800 times in an 11,000 person contest, or 11,000 entry contest. So just things to think through, man. Like we saw last night's winner where we were talking, hey, you're going to need 50 balls or 60 balls from everyone. It wasn't a particularly high scoring slate on the upper echelon outside of SGA and Luca, but just like in terms of thought process, we even said it on the show. How come nobody's taking Scotty Barnes? We said that yesterday. Nobody's taking Scotty Barnes. We would have been jumping up and down to play Scotty Barnes in this spot last year without Fred VanVleet. And now Fred VanVleet's gone forever, and nobody wanted to click Scotty Barnes or OG's name. And then what do you need in the winning lineup? You need scroll the F down. You need Cade Cunningham, who was barely drafted in the 6. You need Scotty Barnes, who was barely drafted in the 6. And guess what? If you put those two on the same team, then you get there, right? So just thinking through like range of outcomes that on the back end of these 6 rounds in drafts, like even if you think the ADP or the projection on the site is like, oh my God, what a GM, I got Bobby Portis in the 6th round. And it's like, well, I mean, he only projects for like 3 points better than like Pat Connaughton, who's going completely undrafted. Like you don't think Connaughton can be the 6th person off the bench there and get a little run? Yeah, it's just, man, it's range of outcomes here. And I think we're incredibly stagnant, especially in hoops with the auto drafters, because like I was guilty of it yesterday. I auto drafted the shit out of Fred VanVleet. Like, what a dumb move. What a dumb play on a 12 game slate. Like, yeah, I just wanted to like get some volume in and I thought he was a better play than projections were alluding. But like to end up with like 35, 38% Fred Van Fleet on a 12 game slate like that, man, I was just shooting myself in the foot, right? T-Box shared his exposures and stuff from yesterday and had a really bad day. It's because T-Box is a crazy exploitative player, and you're going to get even more exploitative on a 12 game slate when the opportunities for everyone else to make picks is plentiful. So, you get pigeonholed to the same builds over and over and over again. He probably duped himself, 10, 12 times. And that's amazing if you get all the plays right. But range of outcomes on a 12 game slate is, man, it's going to be way harder than usual to nail the plays that are right or the play the best plays. Yeah, Nick, I know you tried to get people on Scotty. Big shouts to you. I saw you, fifth or sixth place or something in the main contest there, a little 2 grand in your pocket. Love to see it. Nick, the definitive hoops guy, much more so than myself. Yeah, interesting spots though that I just want to like talk through before we. Let me hit the refresh here to move it to today. Before we draft like one or two more for the new contest, because the new contest is now up. There's also a $50 16 max. Not my favorite contest structure ever, but to bridge the gap to that like quote unquote higher stakes or whatever. If someone doesn't want to auto draft or put the time in to draft 150 lineups at $5, you can just go ahead and do 16 of them and get, the same amount of money down, which is pretty cool. Like you can just go ahead and get that down. We're hunting for unique combinations, especially at the front end of draft boards and hoops. So I do kind of like the volume of like 150 at the $5 price point opposed to 16 at the 50. But really liked the contest yesterday, the $100 single entry. Thought I had a little bit of a sweat in it for a bit. Didn't turn out to be true. Let me go ahead and you guys tell me in the chat there if you like the lack of background music. I feel like I'm just like drowning shit out here without it. Yeah, so big things obviously on the Sixers side is I have no idea what's going on with Harden. It was personal reasons in which he was ruled out. Then the team, then he was kind of like, okay, the season's starting, I'm ready to come back. And the team was like, no, no, that's fine. Just stay home for a couple games and we'll call it a conditioning stint and blah blah blah. I mean, there's a real good chance this Sixers team comes out flat as hell without Harden, with potentially sluggish Embiid, just based on what we've seen from him in the past here. But this Bucks team, man, there's a lot of fun names to click, and there's like a lot of guys that you want exposure to. Like we talked about the Middleton, we talked about the Portis, we talked about Brooke Lopez goes in the third round over and over again. The problem is we haven't seen this team with Dame. And Dame sucks a ton of usage. I mean, maybe we could see the assist rate bump up this year, but Drew Holiday is like a premium distributor. Like he is a distribute and D guy. Like that's what he was. That's what he brought to this team. He, as sexy as it is on paper to get like Dame Lillard on this team, and if you're the Bucks, you do it. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not saying hey keep Drew Holiday because blah blah blah. But it's very interesting. The dynamic of this team changes to reflect that of like closer to the Lakers. Maybe that's a bad comp. Closer to like postseason Lakers potentially. I'm just saying them because they're here. Just in terms of like super condensed usage to two of the best talents in the NBA, and that's it. Maybe Mavs is a better comp, where all the usage just funnels to, we watched it last night with the Mavs San Antonio game. I watched, a good portion of that. Wanted to see Wemby, obviously. But when Kyrie has the ball and Luka's off in the corner catching his breath, it's literally just ISO ball for one of the two of them alternating possessions effectively. Like it is the complete opposite of whatever Golden State did during the dynasty window of time. This beautiful basketball where you spin it around and blah blah blah. The the offense fully condenses to two players, and they effectively just uh, trade off possessions. Maybe that doesn't happen with the Bucks, but I am a little worrisome that that's how it looks from a fantasy standpoint. Now, I think they're a way better basketball team. Like Dame is, a top 10 talent in this league, and I'm very happy. I mean, maybe not anymore, but he's in the top 20. But I'm very happy for him finally getting an opportunity like this because he paid his dues with the Blazers for just so long. So they've obviously improved. They're a very good team. They're, top 3 team in the East for sure. Probably the 101 of the East, depending on your views. This might be the 101 and 102 of the East going head to head on opening night here. But I'm fearful for what it does from a fantasy standpoint to the auxiliary options there. So I was way down on Portis and Middleton because of that. I was taking some Malik Beasley just because he was flat out mispriced, in the 6th round slash undrafted. But that was just my stance. I'm very excited to see how it plays out tonight. On the other side there with the Sixers, we have seen what Maxey is without Harden. And then you factor in, as I think, under conditioned early in the season, less minutes, less dominant Embiid, I am anticipating. I really like Maxey tonight. So as I alluded to, I was taking Maxey over Nurk at like the 7 spot there, and I'll continue to do so in the second contest there. Kelly Oubre for me was a big stand before because Pat Bev's projection was actually like only almost up there. Yeah. Yeah. Um, let's see. What's Antonio? What's up here, man? Can you please show us how to do your own rankings and auto draft? Yeah, absolutely. Here. I'll do that real quick and then we'll talk about that Lakers Phoenix game. You just go ahead, click the rankings tab up here. Then you go down to the NBA. You pick the slate. This is the 4:30 for my Pacific time zone here, and then you just go ahead and you just add to this side and drag and drop and whatever, or you can upload a CSV over here. Then once they're set up like that, you just go ahead. You hop in a draft here. Okay, fine. I'll just do it. You hit enter. You hit enter here. And then you just go ahead and you click this right here. This is the most important step of them all. Hashtag push the plane. You go ahead, you put it on autopilot mode. And now as soon as this fills, that's going to draft and we can back out of there. And we are now in that draft. And you will find it under your active tab right there. And you see this sweet, sweet green little plane means I'm auto drafting and means I'm doing so in a timely and fast manner so that everybody else in my room is not pissed off at me waiting for the whole time clock to elapse. Shout out a la RT99 and J Czar. Please, hashtag push the plane, the movement. Yeah, Suns Lakers. So let's treat it as, because this is effectively what we're dealing with right now. Let's throw the Booker and Beal thing out the window for a second when we're just dissecting this. My initial gal brain take is, I want a couple lineups that have them in there in the 6th round because that could break the slate. I mean, 6th round Booker on this slate with two other studs. Like if you start AD plus Dame Lillard from like the 104, and then you tack Booker on in that last round. If he plays, I mean, GG's, man, that game, that it's over. So, yeah, is there a 1 in 500 chance? Is there a 1 in 1,000 chance that Booker goes from D tag to Q tag to playing tonight? I mean, I don't think it's that high, but I think there's a chance. So I want it in my bag. Anyways, let's treat it like they're out tonight. Roto Grinders is projecting Gordon, Grayson Allen, Okogie. We saw Okogie. I poo-pooed on the Okogie and Prince plays last slate. I thought they were very, very similar plays on Tuesday's slate where it's just kind of like they're out there. And if they find their way to 2 stocks, 4 boards, and 8 points, they're going to end up mattering. And then Prince shot the lights out from 3 and mattered in a big way because you needed sixth round Prince when guys like me were passing on it and other guys were gobbling it up in the sixth there. Something very similar could happen tonight. I'm not sure there's any reason for the Lakers or the Suns, after seeing how well both those guys played in the first game, to move away from it unless there's like foul trouble or something like that. That being said, Lakers, we saw it in the postseason last year, man. They are very, very hot hand approach. If Rui had got hot in his minutes off the bench, granted, he came in. Let me bring up the popcorn one more time here. Here, let me show you. Yeah. So like when Rui comes in here, if he gets hot and he doesn't go like over 3 from the field in this stretch right there, I mean, maybe they just let him run and play this next start here, the to start the second quarter, instead of going the Christian Wood route, and they play Rui at the 5. Um yeah, because we know they're comfortable with Rui on Joker. So I don't know. Maybe there's like a little something there that if Rui had made some shots, maybe they would have ran with him to open up that second there. So I mean, I'm not ruling out that Rui can play some good 5 minutes over Christian Wood tonight against like a guy like Nurk, who's just like an athletic stretch guy, not a traditional like in the paint back you down big. So I do kind of like that matchup for Rui. Now it'll be interesting to see what they do. Maybe they just run with a little bit of Christian Wood again tonight, or maybe they just go ahead and Rui never takes any of Prince's minutes for that reason, and they're fine with just like Prince playing like the 3 or something like that and leaving him on the court. Anyways, I'm just gal braining some reasons to draft Rui, I guess. Um, yeah, Nick bringing up this one. This is a good one. Yeah, I mean, Gabe Vincent actually had decent run. Like people were talking about it pre-game. Like, is it going to be Max Christie? What's going to happen with Lakers bench? And we talked about it on the show on Tuesday. We're like, man, Gabe Vincent is living rent free in my head for what he did in the postseason from behind the arc. And now all of a sudden he moves to the Lakers. They went out, they got him. They wanted him. They wanted Gabe Vincent on this team. And then, he was going basically undrafted on a 2-game slate. Same thing happened again tonight. Like a guy like Gabe Vincent can get hot from 3 and matter in the 6th round. So definitely good shout there. I'm a little obviously, not relinquishing my priors after just like one game. So I'm not like as high on Prince as the field. I do think his box score just looks really nice because he scored 17 points. I mean, I don't know if he scored 17 points. I guess he scored 18 points. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't. I I don't think he's good enough to keep some of these other guys like Vincent and Rui on the bench for as long a stretches as they did last game. I think if Ruiz gets this, 14-minute bump up here, he's going to be the guy you need in the 6th round in this contest. Yeah. Anyways, long-winded way of saying that I think we need to open our third eyes a little bit and not just box score watch for this slate. And then the same thing applies on the Phoenix side, as we were talking about before there. Just like, where does all this Devin Booker 37 minutes go? Right? I mean, he went from game time decision tested out in warm up to playing 37 minutes, a team high, right? Where does that go? Because we've seen this team now through the tail end of the postseason last year without CP3, and then now one game into the season without CP3, and it is the point Booker show, right? Like it is Booker ball in hand running the point, and it's this tag team game of him and Durant. It's going to be amazing for fantasy, especially on the 6 gamers when you can find ways to pair the two of them together. I mean, it's going to be so fun. The problem is, what do we do with everybody else, right? So I don't know. Nurk had a really nice game in the paint there. Eubanks still got his. I'm totally fine pairing those two together because I don't think they'll ever be on the floor together, which obviously caps their ceiling. But I think they're both good enough, like fantasy point per minute producers from like the 5 in certain matchups. Maybe AD isn't necessarily that matchup tonight, but I do think I'm totally fine with like on a 2-game slate going third round uh Nurk and then taking Eubanks in the last round there. But yeah, I mean, I've been leaning into what we saw from Eric Gordon despite not starting last game. I think they will go Gordon over Goodwin. I think they tipped their hand a little bit there. That's just, my bro science thoughts right now, based on last game. So I think Eric Gordon will probably have been, I guess we can just go ahead and look at it to be honest. Completed drafts. We ended up doing 48 of them. My exposure, I expect Gordon. Yeah. So, that's only 32 of them. Sorry. I'll be a liar here. 49 of them, 42%. Gordon. Yeah, we haven't even talked about D'Angelo Russell. I really liked what I saw out of D'Angelo Russell. It was honestly like they were showcasing him for a trade in that game. Uh, him and Reeves, their projections on nightly basis shouldn't be as far apart as they are on the platform right now. I think they're far more interchangeable than that. But yeah. Anyways, yeah. So as you can see, wow, I ended up with more Chris Middleton than I intended right there. So maybe the field was doing similar to me. I got Kelly Oubre up there because I think he's a good basketball player and I think he plays over Pat Bev and some of those tertiary options for the Sixers. Yeah, interesting stuff here. Yeah, you can see I'm kind of like, matching the field on Embiid or a little lower than the field on Embiid, a little lower than the field on LeBron. I was really prioritizing how can I get Kevin Durant and how can I get Giannis was kind of my thought process with those front rounds there. Yeah, yeah, interesting. Yeah, Ben saying that Prince is gonna D Hop and Kamara like me. Yeah, this is very true, man. That is very true. Oh man. Yeah, anyways, that was kind of my macro level thoughts on hoops there. I will keep tinkering with the rankings throughout the entirety of the day. But I think if you want a little bit of leverage in these contests, you go ahead and do what I did and you just go, hey man, everything runs through Kevin Durant tonight. Like Jordan Goodwin and Eric Gordon aren't good enough to take away a ton of that. And Kevin Durant just goes, hey, it's prime time. Let me remind you who I am. 40 burger with a double double. So yeah, I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world to flip the board tonight and just be like Kevin Durant from the front end or Kevin Durant from the back end with AD, with Dame, anytime it falls to you, and just getting exploitative over the field and playing Kevin Durant. I didn't do a ton of it last night. I wish I aped in a little bit harder. I came up with this brilliant game theory idea this morning once I'd already run like 25 drafts and seen that the combos just kept repeating themselves. So if Durant plus Russell or Maxi, because basically there's no other way to get Durant plus Maxi unless you take him at the 101 or the 102. So if Durant plus Maxi is the combo you need, like people are going to be underexposed to it. Maybe some weird ass third round Maxi exists from last night or something. But if Durant plus Maxi, which is very viable, that's the combo that you need, is what you need. I mean, that's basically what I want to happen tonight, just in terms of like exposure that I'll have that I think the field doesn't have. So, anyways, we're back to the game theory of 2-game hoops slates. This is bread and butter, man. I love these. I love these very much. What do we got here? Okay, here we go. So Nick, with a little context, Book and Beal actually out. So I'm gonna have 5 or 6 dead lineups out of those 50 so odd that I did there. Interesting that Nick actually went heavy LeBron. Probably aged poorly, but hey, we will see. That's it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's entirely fine to be heavy LeBron tonight if you think you're gonna get that vintage point LeBron game. out of him. I mean, you know, Island game where they talked a lot of shit before that Denver game. They get beat up, and LeBron has to play 65 games this year. So, I mean, for him to ball out in those games in which he has to play, yeah. I mean, he has to play. He doesn't have to play 65. He has to play 65 if he wants to qualify for All Pro. Some of those new start sit rules that the NBA has implemented this year. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's not a crazy night to do so, Nick, because we have not seen what Giannis plus Dame is going to look like, right? So who knows? Yeah, I mean, if there's a night to get to LeBron, it might be this one. That being said, I don't think I could do the problem with some of the auto draft stuff, guys, that I was kind of running into was if you have AD ranked ahead of Kevin Durant, like these settings do, you basically wind up with AD plus LeBron over and over again. And I think that's like from a correlation matrix standpoint negative if you're doing 150 entries. Like it's not incredibly important in basketball, but for them both to hit their ceiling games, let's just think about the playoffs of last year. What was the meme? What was the joke? It was that they were trading nights, back to back nights. It was the AD game, then the LeBron game, then the AD game, then the LeBron game, right? That was just how it was, right? If we push that into this season, it's really hard for those two to both hit ceiling when in the same game when you have other guys around that they could be paired with in, Dame, Durant, maybe if you're lucky enough, a Giannis, if he falls in one of these drafts. I think it's like from a theory standpoint, probably bad to have AD or LeBron ranked above 4. And then I think you kind of need this stopgap of Dame in here so that the same thing doesn't happen every single time you run the 104 slot and you just pair, LeBron and AD over and over and over again. So anyways, just thinking out loud, sharing my thoughts on the slate. As always, man, evergreen statement from me. The reason I do this, the reason I share this, the reason I whatever is because I have no vested interest in how you guys play. I have no vested interest in any of that. I just love to do this, think through it on the fly, share with you guys, be part of the community as much as leading the community is I just want to be like, hey, this is what I'm doing tonight. This is money where my mouth is. You take it or leave it, copy it or not. Nick's a very good player on this site. He's doing LeBron over this. Perfect. That's great. That is perfect, and that's great discourse for us going forward and whatever. So it's as always, everything I say, grain of salt. Don't just carbon copy. Think through it. Yeah, not much more to say on the hoop stuff, other than kind of like these scroll down areas. I admittedly didn't get to any Pat Connaughton. Um, might might be bad, but very specific game script for him to matter a ton. Maybe like Malik Beasley fouls and that sort of thing, or maybe Malik Beasley just doesn't have as much of a role, like kind of like Grayson Allen last game, where it's like, yeah, he's starting, but never mind. Here comes Eric Gordon. Here comes Pat. Like that kind of vibe. Anyways, yeah. Macro thoughts. I think the biggest gal brain one that I have is Sabian Lee. Like just that he comes in and runs the point, and they're comfortable with that. That's probably my most extreme outlier. But yeah, let's rip one last draft and then let's do the NFL slate. Oh, snap, Phil. Oh yeah, I absolutely just spilt my coffee all over my beautiful established run hoodie. Ah, perfect. Not as skilled in the old coffee pour as our friend Pete there. The coffee pour it down my chest. Coming off an L, only 29 minutes. Maybe they bump it up the minutes in a more winnable game. Yeah, entirely fair statement, Nick. Yeah. One of my I can't remember if I said this yet or not. One of my gal brain takes to Nez last night when he was asking about like the Beal Booker stuff and if I was going to do that. One of my gal brains was they look at the injury report and LeBron just sits tonight. He just goes, Booker and Beal aren't playing. Fuck it, this is a good one for me to load manage. But it's as you allude, coming off. It's an island game. It's nationally televised, and it's coming off a loss like that early in the year. Maybe if this is December, LeBron looks at that injury report and decides for himself that it's a load management night. But yeah, that's an interesting question from Antonio. Like how my lineups would shift in the heads up stuff. Admittedly, don't do a ton of stuff. That's T Box's domain. Every time I seemingly jump into a cash game street, those $100 double ups or those $50 double ups, I just run into T Box over and over again. So yeah, I kind of stay in my lane when it comes to that stuff. I think the mindset is more prioritizing like floor opposed to ceiling there, and you lean into minutes more so. So like a guy like Prince becomes a better play. A guy like Josh Okogie becomes a better play. Whereas out here, we're looking for like some extreme outlier game of a bench guy in the sixth round that's gonna diversify us in some capacity. So yeah, the standard start thus far with a couple friends of the show in Crash Rish and Short Gamer TV. There, Chris, man, you got to come out. Chris has been in seemingly everything versus us on stream the last couple of days. Say what up in the chat, man. Um, yeah, I mean, this has just been AD and Dame for me over and over again. I just think AD on this site in a vacuum, evergreen statement. The ceiling bigs in these games just play so much better than like just look at last night for instance. The 1v1 of Sangoon and Fred Van Fleet. Like I should have had way more Sengun because I liked the spot, I liked the game environment. Why am I not? Why am I playing it all through the 3 point shooter, the distributor, blah blah blah? Like why am I not aping into a supposedly lighter rebounding matchup for a big versus like Wagner and stuff like this, right? Versus Wendell Carter Jr. Like that matchup. Why am I not playing that angle of the game as well? Because stocks play so much on this platform. Rebounds matter so much. It's not your traditional like, sexy box score guys. Like we barely ever drafted like a guy like Jalen Green in the past because all he does is score. Like it doesn't matter that much on this site. Like he literally needs to score 40 to matter. And that's just, that's happening what 3 to 5 times a year for a guy like Jalen Green. So yeah, I do really like the ceiling of the bigs pretty high. Yeah, that's a pretty good team for the heads up there stuff that Antonio's alluding to there. Durant, he's got the Giannis plus Embiid. Yeah, that is scary. But Reeves late there feels good. Um, Interesting from Terrence here. Interesting take here. They should force LeBron, lock him under 30. Huh. And just be like, yeah, like 80, you got to step up and carry this. Like he's the oldest guy in the league kind of deal. That's I mean, yeah, it's going to be hard to keep a guy like LeBron from playing basketball, but like saving him from himself in some respects there. Not a crazy take. All right. We got the Brooke Lopez decision staring us. I think Chris will take Brooke Lopez just in general. Not the best matchup in the world for him versus Embiid, but I think Melton's like the clear click here. And then I've been Reeves over Okogie, and I'll stand my ground on that one. I'm not buying the whole box score stuff. And even if you just look at the box score stuff, I mean, like Reeves outperformed Akogi last game too. I think Reeves is an underappreciated basketball player, and I think there's a really good reason. He showed it all in the postseason last year. I think this team likes him more than D'Angelo Russell. I think that's going to slowly show itself over the course of the season. Maybe D'Angelo Russell doesn't get traded, or I think he very well could. But I think there's a reason they gave the contract to Reeves and they didn't give it to D'Angelo Russell, and why they got rid of D'Angelo Russell once before. Granted, he's a different basketball player than he was back then, but just something to think through here is hashtag follow the money, right? And I think they love Reeves. I think they love Reeves, and I think Reeves can fill it up in big ways very often. So I will keep clicking Reeves in the fourth round because I think he's mispriced. If you're gonna just 1v1 him versus like Josh Okogie and Chris Middleton on a minutes restriction, that's going to be a pretty concerted stand for me. That Reeves is like the 14th player off the board, 12th player off the board over and over again. Yeah. We didn't talk about Tobias Harris at all. I mean, Tobias Harris is just kind of like he is what he is at this point in his career. Like he's going to be out there. He's going to start. He's going to get 14 points and 8 rebounds. And if it's a low scoring night from some of the other stars, he's going to be the third or fourth round piece you need. But he's not a guy with like a ceiling that I'm prioritizing over, Russell, Melton, Reeves, basically. Yeah. He's always going to have Tobias Harris is going to be one of those classic guys whose mean projection is always like slightly higher than some of these other guys, but his ceiling projection is not, because there's never going to be, especially with Harden back, there's just never going to be that game where it's like, Tobias is on fire from mid-range. Keep feeding Tobias Harris. Like it's just that's not the MO of the Sixers. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one here. Like Reeves is good at filling up the box score, right? Reeves is who people think Poole is. That's a pretty good shout. That's a pretty good shout. I like that a lot. Um, I think 6th round Bobby Portis is going to feel pretty nice on this team. We're going 3 Lake shows on here with Prince, I guess. Maybe it's contrarian enough because we get a Bobby Portis in the 6th round, and somebody pushed up Grayson Allen. Short Gamer TV pushed up Grayson Allen to 18 there. So let's go ahead and take Bobby Portis there in the 6th and hope that's the build you need, and he plays some of those Middleton minutes. Yeah, really nice, fun team there. Melton doesn't always make it back to 12, nor does Reeves every single time. And then finishing with Prince Portis, like that feels like a pretty nice rare team. Check in on our boy Crash Rich. He's got Eric Gordon pushed way up, so that makes me feel kind of nice because he's my highest exposed player right now. Yeah, cool. Nice. I think Okogie over Middleton for me here, but Chris has it the other way around. Entirely fine. Just a stance that I think, I don't know, kind of matters. Maybe just because of the minutes thing. Yeah. But Evergreen, there's a lot of good basketball players back here that could get hot and stay in the game. Bebo Paul's probably dependent on foul trouble, but I think Rui could take some of these Prince minutes if he comes in and he's playing some good ball. Same with Gabe Vincent, could come in and take some D'Angelo Russell minutes. Yeah. No Crowder. No idea what they're gonna do. What Philly's gonna do with the Pat Beverly versus Springer versus maybe like that kind of like 8th, 9th man might be a little too far in Galbrain, but I have no idea what they're gonna do with like Pat Bev versus Springer versus when they pull Tucker out of a game kind of thing. Anyways, yeah, fun hoop slate. This is a really deep 2-game slate, And the fact that the slate is actually better without Booker and Beal, I'm not going to lie, and Harden for that matter. There's a lack of name value and lack of talent at the top end comparatively than if those guys were on the slate. It'd be a lot of fun to click those names, but I think it's a better slate to play because it introduces some more murkiness, some ambiguity between like these back end guys that we can tell stories and get different with at the back end. Whereas if those guys were on the slate, we would just be GM hunting for like three of those studs. So the value in quotations, i.e., the minutes that have opened up because of those players' absence, actually makes this slate really fun to draft, in my opinion. So I do think that might play into why it's filled so quickly. Let's go ahead and go to the Fantasy Life Game Hub here and talk about the NFL slate. NFL slate, pretty interesting. You got two game environments where high-ish team totals, 43 and 45 and a half. Let's confirm by scrolling the F down. 46 and a half now in this Chargers, Bears, and Bills, Broncos, Bucks. Um, as we alluded to on yesterday's show, Bills defense is not Bills defense of old. They are missing Oliver. They're missing Tre'Davious White. They're getting limited snaps out of Von Miller. This team is not what we've grown accustomed to the last couple years. The last couple years, it was like, hey, they could blow the doors off of you with Josh Allen and the offense, and then they could shut it down at the other end. And some of these games were over by like the third quarter. That this looks a little more back and forth than a 9.5 spread would suggest to me. Maybe that's just a little bro science on my behalf there, but it feels a little bit closer than this, just based on what we've seen of the Bucks, how we've seen Baker operate, and then what we've seen on the Bills defense side. Bills coming off of a couple bad losses, maybe not bad, but tough losses against Jacksonville and New England there. So just interesting. But context of the slate: 43 and a half, 46 and a half, two big outlying home favorites in Bills 9.5, and I believe Chargers are 9.5 as well. Maybe they're 8.5 now, 8.5. So just very interesting. I will bring up some overall defensive metrics just for a second. I'll give it a quick zoom. There you go. Is that good? Let me go back to it. Okay, cool. Chargers giving up the most pass yards per game in all of football, and more of the same from the fourth worst in terms of the Bears on the other side there too. So we could see some big time yardage coming from that through the air, and I think it makes Bajent look a little bit better in my mind now that we've seen one game of him that was half decent. We've seen a little bit of a rushing floor, and we see that he's in a really good passing game environment, which is most likely going to be a trailing script. I think he's a little closer to Baker than the field is giving credit. And I think if we go ahead and just look at ETR's projections, they confirm my priors in terms of actually having Tyson Bagent projected higher than Baker Mayfield. So if you want to go ahead and punt quarterback, maybe not punt quarterback, because there are two upper echelon outliers here in Allen and Hurts. If you want to go ahead and then just be like, okay, I'm aping in on like 3 or 4 skill position guys at the top end of these draft boards, I think if you just took the names away from these players and you pretend, put your hand over Baker and Tyson there, and you just looked at the raw numbers and the spot, I don't think you'd be prioritizing Baker in like the 3rd or 4th round as people are currently doing in drafts. So not necessarily an endorsement of Tyson, but definitely an endorsement of like, hey, if you don't get one of those two guys, just be the last to take quarterback. But kind of evergreen on these 2-game slates here. Let's go ahead and back to hoops for a second. We will go into, I was looking at some of that. Yeah, the macro stuff just for one more second here. Chargers practice report stuff on their end. Gerald Everett and Joshua Palmer, legit Q tags, legit might miss games. So I think it opens up a little bit of gal brain value at the tight end position. I would be Donald Parham over going to like Smart, for instance. We can pull up the usage of those tight ends in a second and show as to why. We have ourselves a very similar situation to the Jamal Williams as well last game or last 2 game slate where he had the out tag, but he was designated to return and blah blah blah. And this one might low key matter. Jalen Guyton. They have shown that they don't really like QJ. We have this Joshua Palmer looming injury. We have this Everett looming injury. I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world that if you went unstacked Herbert early to tack on Jalen Guyton in the last round. He practiced yesterday, limited capacity. He was designated to return actually not this week, but last week, and then wasn't able and went through a week of like limited practices and whatever. I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world to just go out tag Jalen Guyton because he is a break the slate dude where it's like he's either going to be a goose egg, and a lot of those guys in like the 6th round on this slate might be goose eggs, or he's going to be 45 yards for a score. He is very Chosen Anderson esque. He is very MVS esque. That is what he's always been. This burner on the outside, this high A dot guy, this break the slate on one play kind of guy. It is extreme gal brain. I'm just getting it off my chest. All right. All right. What else we got here? Yeah, Bill stuff. Bucks. Other one is Chase Edmonds coming back tonight. He's got the probable tag. He had a Q tag previously. Rashad White has been a volume merchant. It's what he's been. The Bucks have, even in trailing scripts, the Bucks have not abandoned the run, especially on first down. Like they are literally up there, putting them up there against like the Falcons and shit for establishing the run on early downs. They just don't quit it, man. Even in bad spots, even in trailing scripts, they just do not quit the run. It makes Rashad White a very attractive piece tonight, especially when we see him coming off of, I think it was a 4 or 5 target game last time out. Might have even been 6 target. We'll look in a second. Game last time out, but I do want to say that he hasn't been productive. Right, last game was maybe his best from an eye test standpoint. He hurdled a defender. He was utilized in the pass game. He still didn't score at the goal line. He got stuffed a couple times at the goal line in the last primetime slate. So there might be reason for this Bucks team to go, hey, let's see what we got in Chase Edmonds here. Let's use him on 3rd downs. Let's see, because they haven't seen a ton from Keyshawn Vaughn and they haven't seen a ton from Sean Tucker yet either. So, yeah, that being said, he's been active twice thus far early in the season. And if we look at the utilization report, he only played 12% of snaps. He only had 2 carries in that game. And then he had played 4 the following time, and he only had 2. He had 1 carry, maybe 2 carries. We can look in a second in that game. It's a little gal brain. It's a little scroll the F down. I'm just saying it's there. Let's think about it. I've clicked it once. I've done it with a Baker one, but yeah, it's there. Most attractive. Let's go back to platform of the people for a second, and we will bounce back and forth. That is the 3-game slate. Let's go to the 2-game slate. Actually, speaking of the 3, Neumy threw out a tweet this morning. If you want to have your opinion and your voice heard, go to our Discord and or go to Neumy's Twitter there. And he said, do you want the main contest for Island games to be these 2 gamers, or do you want them to be the 3 gamers? I'll voice my opinion right now. I think the three gamers are probably a more enjoyable drafting experience in terms of like you get some more premium players, that sort of thing. I think it's a more user-friendly experience. I think if you're thinking of it from a financial standpoint on the back end of the company, you would prefer to have multiple two gamers as bigger because you can run more of them than having three gamers that are like a slightly larger size than like the two gamer. So user thinking, three is probably better. Making money standpoint, I think probably the twos are better, but those things are not necessarily mutually exclusive because if people don't want to play the two gamers and fill them because they know they could have three gamers, well, maybe the interest level goes down a little bit. But that was my initial knee jerk reaction and thought process to there. All right, let's go position by position. I think it's a pretty clear Josh Allen's kind of a tier by himself just because of his propensity to score on the ground, his ability to rush. Maybe they are a little more reliant on rushing for him because they haven't had they've had some nice success the last couple of games from James Cook. I was just thinking more with without Dawson Knox present as an inline blocker that he's forced to scramble a little bit more. Obviously, one of the big nuggets, we've already gone over this, but one of the big nuggets is Dawson Knox being out for this game and mucking up the tight end slate here. I just wanted to click on that note now that they had a little star beside Justin Fields because don't think it didn't cross my mind that potentially a little cheeky Fields in the last round as like a naked quarterback who can run. But I think it's damn near 0% chance it's happening. It's already kind of been said that Tyson's gonna play. And I mean, hey man, Tyson was he won the Heisman Trophy of Div 2. Yeah, anyways, last year. Anyways, um, yeah, and then Herbert, kind of like a very common start to these drafts is like Allen goes, Eckler goes, Diggs goes, and then someone in like the 104 double taps Herbert plus Allen. Makes way too much sense. It's going to be the number one most repeated combo in this tournament. So just be mindful of it, but definitely something you want. We showed how bad the Bears have been against the pass in general, and Justin Herbert, low key, has been. Let me see. I'll do this. Okay, let me pull that out here and just do it on my lonesome as I talk. In terms of fantasy points per game at the quarterback position, we alluded to the fact that he was the 101 of that. Obviously, raw fantasy points didn't match up because they've already had their bye. But just in terms of fantasy points per game, he was actually QB1 at one point a week and a half ago. And just looking at that 12 burger there for him, I imagine he has dropped since. But we've talked about the Chiefs defense being legit and for real. But he's despite name value, despite optics of how the team has done and that sort of thing, he has been good from a fantasy standpoint. So yeah, but always a guy that I want to have stacked. Whereas Josh Allen, entirely fine running him naked and not forcing the Gabe Davis or Dalton Kincaid in the third or fourth round to get ahead there. ETR likes Tyson better. Baker, we're talking about fractions of points in ceiling. I think the matchup is almost equal for both. I do think the Chargers one is probably a little better, but we have a much longer track record in believing in Baker, and he's been pushing the ball downfield. So he showed a little bit with his legs last game too. He had that little 20-ish yard scramble. Was it last game or the game before? Last game, 32-yard scramble, and then he had 32 total rushing yards, and then 31 in a game before there. Like that low-key matters on a slate like this. But Tyson's shown a little bit too. He had the 24 and the 23 in that shortened game. Yeah. Anyways, kind of how I got quarterback ranked is Allen naked, Herbert stacked, and these ones, whichever fits my build. If I have DJ Moore in the second round, I'm probably going the route of Tyson. If I get, Godwin or Evans, then I'm going the route of Baker. Pretty simplistic stuff there. Running back is a make or break position on this slate because do we think Roschon plays? We've talked all year about the concussion protocol, how it's basically been like you take 1 week off and now you're good. And that's been exactly how they've run for every single player in the NFL this year is if you are in concussion protocol, they have not cleared a player in the same week as he's entered it. So that's why we're anticipating Sam Darnold this week. That's why we anticipated no Roshan last week. That's why we anticipated no Jimmy G last week or the previous time he was hurt. One of the two. Anyways, he's practicing in full. He practiced in full yesterday. He is projected higher in ETR stuff. So they are anticipating Roshan Johnson. That being said, I do not see how you cut out Deontay Foreman against a team that has been a traditional run funnel in the Chargers. I mean, they've been getting killed by the pass this year, but in a traditional run funnel spot, I do not see how you keep him out or not at least a 50-50 workload split after he scores 3 touchdowns for you last game and absolutely dominates. So I have them ranked like basically side by side, and I'm kind of pushing Latavius below, and then I'm just not really pairing them together. I could see the merit for pairing them together, but I am low-key prioritizing Foreman just in terms of what they saw last week, the recency bias of it, and maybe they use Roshan in that third down stuff. So if you were going to stack a running back with Bajan, it makes a lot more sense to stack Roshan, in my opinion. That being said, I think I would rather play Foreman in a vacuum. In a lot of these like 1-1-3-1 builds, he will just be like my solo running back late. Eckler is in a tier by himself ahead, and I think that running back is shallower. I can tell myself more stories with running back than wide receiver on this slate. That being said, I think from a projection standpoint, running back is shallower than wide receiver. So then what I've been doing is prioritizing Eckler over Diggs. So something that I'm doing that I'm recognizing that the field is not necessarily in lockstep with their both in terms of projection on the site, as you can see, and in terms of how drafts have been going. So yeah. Anyways, the Keyshawn Vaughn versus Chase Edmonds, there might be like a little bit of leverage and just like, hey, the unknown that we don't know versus like the devil we do kind of thing might be a little leverage in getting there. Joshua Kelly, all of a sudden, Joshua Kelly has the backfield to himself for multiple weeks and does absolutely nothing with it, looks putrid, doesn't get utilized in the pass catching role whatsoever. And then as the change of pace spelling back for Eckler last week, he just breaks off a 50-yard touchdown. And it's like, where the F was that when you were chalk in the Miami Vikings big shootout of the century matchup in week 3 or 4 or whatever it was, where I paid 25% of you in the main contest. Yeah, man, 7 for 75 and 1. Like, just fuck Joshua Kelly. Yeah. GA bringing up a good point. Thank you, GA. This is a good point here. Roshan's actually been 2 weeks in the protocol, so that is, it's noteworthy that maybe his was more severe than some of those other previously mentioned concussion protocol guys. Yeah, I mean, Blake, getting to the Joshua Kelly stuff, he's absolutely viable in this contest. He is going to find his way to 5 touches no matter what. They most likely will not be targets, but it's what you make of Joshua Kelly. Can he do what he did in week 1? All Joshua Kelly's good games have come with Eckler. It's bizarre, man. It was week 1 where he gets 16 touches and scores a touchdown in that game. And it was like, holy shit, is this a 50-50 split with Eckler? And then Eckler's out for 4 weeks or whatever. He does absolutely nothing. And then Eckler comes back and all of a sudden, so it's like this whole like thunder and lightning analogy of, oh, Eckler's softening up the defense for Joshua Kelly. Like, fuck that. I am prioritizing Eckler on this slate. I am not box score watching on Joshua Kelly. The team loves him. The team loves Joshua Kelly. They insist that he's better than Isaiah Spiller. They keep running him out there. So you can't ignore him on this slate. But if I'm just going the backup running back route in like a 1-2-2-1, or I get froze out at running back, I'm not prioritizing him over Latavius Murray. I love that goal line stuff. We talked how the spicy pick'em didn't get home last week, and we were so damn close. He was down at the 1-yard line twice. He was getting that goal line utilization. Bring up the utilization report here while we're talking running back as well. Go to that Bills side there. 42% of snaps, man. 20% of the rushing attempts. He had 44% of the rushing attempts before. And look at this. This is the one that tickles our fancy here, is this short down and distance and inside the 5 attempts. Sorry, it was not carries last week. It was a target when he was down at the 1 last week. So that one not showing up there. But 100% inside the 5 the previous week there. He was in the backfield and didn't get a rushing attempt after he was down on the 1. They left him in there. So there's that to add. And then, as we alluded to, his 2-minute drill stuff, it was a little bit of a split ever so often. Where's the other one? It was a little bit of a split, through previous weeks with James Cook here. And then all of a sudden, man, they love him in pass pro. They love him in pass pro. And if he can get, a target or two out of that, Latavius Murray over Joshua Kelly for me on this slate is a stand. It's a stand in which I'm taking, but I think the field is a little bit in lockstep there. Let me know in the chat any other questions at running back, but I'm not getting to Darrington Evans because I do think Roschon's in a position to play after fully practicing today. But I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world. If you wanted to get to Evans, we saw him a downtick last week in terms of like, hey, maybe Foreman is back and fully conditioned now. So I will show you. Darrington Evans had that like 37%, 46%. But I will caution people, this 46%. Deontay Foreman did miss some time in this game. He was in the medical tent and whatever. I do think it more of like what we saw in this 60-40 variety. But for whatever reason, if Roschon can't go, Darrington Evans. But I would utilize that as a swap. So I would take Johnson and then swap to Evans because I don't think they're going to run Evans over Johnson. But that Darrington Evans first game there, I think he had, let me confirm here. He had a good number of touches. Yeah, 14 touches versus Vegas. Pretty wild. That was last game, sorry. Last game against Vegas? Yeah, 14 touches still. And then 9 when he came off the street in that Minnesota game. Anyways, not to be ignored, but I think with Roschon coming back, it makes a lot more sense to go there. Wide receiver position. Does Joshua Palmer play? It's going to really determine what you do at wide receiver because you should be pushing up a little bit of QJ there as the Darius Davis stuff. His box scores have looked kind of nice in recent memory, and then this looming, hey man, does Guyton find his way into some returning from IR, that sort of thing? Like he actually has a projection and the out tag. So it's extreme galaxy brain, not financial advice, but I do think there's a chance he's in the rotation. And maybe you just use it as a contrarian swap off Palmer and you just keep clicking Palmer because Palmer's role out of the bye, we had this whole narrative. Oh, rookie going to push up. We're going to go ahead and we're going to push up QJ there. Oh, he's going to be the rookie out of the bye. This is the chance. No, Mike will. And then what happens? 100. Joshua Palmer's the guy. QJ just runs the exact same role. He doesn't even, the only target he got in week 6 was the interception, or I guess it was the only time he was thrown at was like the interception that ended the game. So yeah, I mean, we can wish cast there. We can wish cast here, but it has been extremely condensed. So Palmer missing would be like a really, really big deal for this slate. Yeah. The Tampa auxiliary guys, I prioritize ever so slightly Trey Palmer. Be interested to see what the ETR rankings are suggesting here. Godwin. I mean, we haven't got to the Tyler Scott yet. Tyler Scott's saw a little bit of uptick last week, rookie. They basically have them the exact same. So, I mean, flip a coin between Palmer. I've liked Palmer's usage ever so slightly more. Back to the utilization stuff here. Go ahead and show you guys that one. When I was comparing, I mean, this 70% of routes just kind of jumped out to me. Like the targets and stuff weren't there, but that 70% of routes versus this of the 28 variety here, I think they kind of like Trey Palmer. And we've seen Trey Palmer score 2 touchdowns this year? Question mark. I'm pretty sure it's 2. Both red zone targets. So yeah, Palmer for me as the WR3 option for Tampa Bay. And these projections don't agree with that. So maybe a little bit of leverage there. Be interested to see if the Hardy role, everybody is wish casting that everybody's wish casting that they think this is going to be the big Dalton Kincaid. We saw Dalton Kincaid get 8 targets last week, 8 catches, 11.5 personnel, blah, 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 blah. He's the highest tight end on this slate now that, or projected tight end on this slate. Everybody's going there. What if we just flip the narrative and we go, hey, some of those slot snaps find their way to Hardy? Quentin Morris comes back, plays the inline blocking role, and then they line up Hardy in the slot for a couple here, and he finds himself the touchdown that matters. Not ruling out as a potential. Obviously, I'd rather get over the field on Kincaid in a vacuum, but not ruling out the potential that Deontay Hardy could find himself a couple slot snaps in the red zone there and find himself into the end zone with basically just a situation where all the coverage is looking every other direction other than Hardy, right? We've seen a touchdown like that already this year. But that being said, this Khalil Shakir right here, that's the one that I would rather be clicking than some of these guys in this middling tier here over Trent Sherfield for sure. I just think the Shakir ceiling is higher than these other guys. I'm going to get a little bit over the field in the 6th round on Khalil Shakir just because highest implied team total on the slate. Actually, it has flipped. Chargers do have the highest implied team total right now, but we're talking like fractions of points. But highest implied team total for the majority of this contest window had been the Bills. And just looking for, who has a little bit of slate breaking ceiling. Well, the Hardy one is like, hey, he needs an end zone look. He needs some slot usage. That, like, Shakir, we've seen it in the past where it's like, oh yeah, we could just hit him for 40 yards on like one play. He might be like the sharper iteration of like the Jalen Guyton stuff on the other side. Go ahead and bring this up real quick so I'm not talking completely out of my ass with Bills wide receivers here. But downtick in the Trent Sherfield stuff, 22%, uptick in the Khalil Shakir stuff with this 43% right here. I mean, A dot, not amazing, let's be honest. This is just like the classic Khalil Shakir comes out and, hey, let's just try and find him, 20 plus yards downfield. I think his desired usage is higher than this as an A dot player. So I'm not, reading too heavily that Trent Sherfield's is higher than his, but I am reading a little bit just into this opportunity and targets per route run and his target share comparative to that of Hardy and that of Trent Sherfield. Just a mistake in the projections IMO. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, kind of all we want to talk about there. Extreme gal brain, like, yeah, extreme gal brain, scroll the F down stuff down at the bottom. 2 tight end, not viable on this slate, in my opinion. I think the options are just too thin. We are just going to be touchdown hunting, or we are going to be hunting for the guy who doesn't give us 0. That being said, prioritizing Kincaid over the field right now. I just really like what we saw of his usage last week. To talk out of both sides of my mouth while telling you that there's a potential scroll down. Oh, there you go. Quentin Morris has the official out tag there. So I'm going to get some swaps in the other contest. I went a little gal brain once we got the Dawson knock out tag. So if you're going to swap on the other slate, we'll look at that in a second. Yeah. Anyways, I don't want to distract myself. I got to reel myself in here. As the note suggests, they both didn't practice, and there is reason for concern regarding both statuses. The Palmer one is a knee. Here, let's. Oh, that's inactive. Sorry. Fantasy Life, my people. Let's get the injury report on there so I don't have to go to another site. Let's get the day by day injury report breakdown so I can stay on the secondary platform of the people, the Fantasy Life game hub there. Okay, let's look at this Buffalo one real quick just because I'm curious. So the Quentin Morris one is definitively out. The Knox is definitively out. Man, if you want to scroll the F down at tight end there and just go ahead, man, this is it. freaking ugly, man. Holy. Wow, I was gonna say Zach Davidson, and Zach Davidson has the out tag as well. Holy smokes. Wow, Kincaid is definitely the priority at tight end, getting over the field, hoping they utilize him as a wide receiver and that those 8 targets are real, and that's it. So, yeah, I like that. Um, GA saying Kellen Moore fake sharp. I kind of like Kellen Moore, but yeah, we might have hyped him a little too much at the start of the year. Uh, yeah. Anyways, okay, back to the practice report for 1 second here, and look at this Chargers one because I do think it's real. Okay, so there's the Jalen Guyton one, as I was alluding to. It's an ACL, it's a knee, limited practice, designated for return. The other one, this is the knee with the questionable tag, a DNP there, and then the Everett one is a hip with a DNP. So, admittedly, haven't gone down the coach speak rabbit hole on this yet. Hit up our guy, the coach speak index on Twitter there. I'm sure he'll have something sharp posted and or shared prior to tonight's games there if anything comes available today. Just in terms of what they're saying. But yeah, it makes my scroll the F down target Donald Parham. I don't think he's going to be on the field as much as like Smart or McKitty or anything like that. But I do think we've seen him nose for the red zone, nose for the end zone, that sort of thing. But yeah, man, if you want to go the Trey McKitty or Stone Smart and just get super weird at tight end, it is the slate that if you get boxed out at these front end options, it's not a terrible play. Especially even if Gerald Everett plays, like it's not a terrible play to have Donald Parham exposure, Stone Smart, or Trey McKitty exposure. As far as those go, Parham is like in a class of his own comparative to those two, in my opinion. Yeah. Anyways, long-winded, classic John. Even when nobody else is here, I just chat, chat, chat. But I like to get all my thoughts out. I like to be thorough out here. Yeah, for here you go. One more spot here for this contest. Mr. Good Boy knows it is 12:08 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and Mr. Good Boy knows exactly what that means as he's right here, just right against me. He's like, "Let's go, man. Let's go." Yeah, yeah, I know it's true, man. I never draft. It's kind of like I don't know. For me, like these shows, I've said this before. I understand like the people really like the drafting and stuff like that, but it's weird. It's kind of like the inverse of like Pete when he was doing BBM. Is like Pete loved to do when he was streaming the drafts, right? So the content was the drafts. Whereas like with me, the content is like setting up the slate, doing my research in real time, sharing my research with everyone, sharing my projections with everyone. And then it's like, okay, the cherry on top is like, now we're all ready to draft, and then do a couple drafts. It's a different dynamic. But if you guys don't like that and you guys want me to, it's just easier to talk through when I'm not drafting. I'll miss stuff if I try and talk through it all while I'm drafting. Anyways, if you guys don't like that vibe and you guys want me to just like rip more drafts and stuff, I'll rip more drafts. Yeah, it's a fair point. Whether it's a critique or not, I don't know, GA, but yeah. Yeah, so this has been happening a lot, and it's gonna lead to me being overexposed Austin Eckler. And then the dream scenario a couple times that occurs is if this corner goes Allen plus Cooks. So this is the chalk start so far. We got a whole bunch of bad stuff, sharp drafters in here. This is the super chalk start. Now the key to this is don't get scared at quarterback and start being like, oh, I got to prioritize quarterback because of the guys behind me, and just go ahead and hope you get DJ Moore or Mike Evans, or both DJ Moore and Mike Evans, and then can stack later. Like that's the GM in my mind right now, is if we can get 3-4 of these stud skill position players in the middle and then punt the quarterback position, backstack the tight ends. Yeah. Yeah, there you go, Matt. You talk enough, just draft. Oh, that's so good. That's my cousin for you guys. He does hear me talk too much. We almost got Chris Godwin to come back there. That would have been real sweet. But now we get our pick of quarterback. Obviously, we won't take him right here. But we get our pick of quarterback if we want to box out DMC or if we want to go ahead. I'm going to prioritize Dalton Kincaid right here because I'm not 100% on the Palmer situation. I'm not in love with doing Eckler Palmer without Herbert because it's going to exist with Herbert. So I think just kind of like thinking through that. And then now all of a sudden, we have this decision where it's like we can backstack Bajent here, or we can get ahead and be like, Baker's a better play when we can stack him with Mike Evans. I don't love the backstack Bajent options. And there's a chance that DMC just likes Bajent more. So we could go ahead and just go like, hey, this is the Gabe Davis explosion here. He's going to project so much higher than the rest of these guys. Let's take Gabe Davis and push quarterback around the bend. Okay, Tucker. He's just pawing the back of this chair. Bring up the draft board here so everyone can see what's up. Pretty standard thus far. No real GM in the room. But I will say that like the start of all these builds are all things I want to have exposure to, just based on how the building a portfolio in this contest is going to work. But I like the DMC start the most because he gives himself outs at both the quarterbacks. Um, and then he still has a ceiling guy in like Diggs. So maybe I like it slightly better with Eckler from his draft slot. If I could get like Eckler plus 3 wide receivers here. So he goes ahead and prioritizes Baker. So he's on the Baker train there, which leaves us. I'm not in love with unstacked Tyson. I could see the merit in it in being like, hey, Gabe Davis and Dalton Kincaid are the reason we get down to the goal line, and then Latavius pounds a couple in, or you play double run game through this side. But I think the best play here for us is shit. Okay, don't do this, not financial advice. Obviously, never take the quarterback here because I was gonna go. I thought Darnell Mooney was still available, so I was gonna go scrolling. This might end up having to turn into this. That's see, this is why I can't talk and draft at the same time. But I might have to just do the scroll the F down, get weird with it here with a Tyler Scott stack, perhaps. We saw the uptick in usage. We haven't looked at that one just yet, but Chicago Bears. With Claypool being gone and Equininius St. Brown being on IR, I don't know if they actually moved him to IR. He is out. We've seen this back-to-back weeks. 63% of routes, 67% of routes getting utilized. So our scroll the F down here because I do think it's okay when you get frozen at quarterback to run a naked Tyson team because we've seen a little bit of rushing from him. But I think going ahead and stacking him with an underutilized scroll the F down guy in Tyler Scott, that we're going to go ahead and do that. Little Jamal Agnew-esque with that those rushing attempts there. But pretty controlled draft where nobody's doing the bully tight end thing. Probably a bad slate for it. The Kincaid back stack with the Baker single here. Really like what DMC's done with this team just in general. Chris going for the Chargers double here, the punt of running back, or Chargers triple rather, with Gerald Everett just, buying the discount on double Q tags. Pretty sharp there. And then this looks like it's going to be a naked Josh Allen team or Josh Allen with Cook. I mean, there's definitely a percentage chance that he could find his way to a receiving touchdown or something like that. And that's the correlation you need. Let's go ahead and rip another one of those. See if we can end up with a different draft slot and something a little different here. Thoughts on Rashad White versus the Bills or Henderson versus the Cowboys? Yeah, I mean that's kind of a tough spot to be honest. I'd just play White. I do like what that we saw from the receiving work there in a big way. Although they clearly trust Henderson, but I remind everyone that with the Henderson stuff is that Royce Freeman still found his way to 12 touches and like 40% of snaps. So yeah, I mean, I don't think the return of Chase Edmonds is enough for a season long um, league to be like, I'm not just playing the guy who's going to play 80% of snaps because range of outcomes. I'm not sure Dale Henderson has 80% plus snaps in his bag coming off the street last week. Let's see. I'll look at this real quick. Yeah, Royce Freeman, 42% of snaps last week. So, bro science confirmed. Plus, we noted earlier, if you weren't here, was it Spencer? Spencer? Yeah, we we noted earlier that the Bills' defense is really banged up, man. Really banged up. Um, yeah, good shout here. Miles Gaskin might be active this week too. Yeah, so they have 4 running backs, and he wasn't active last week. Austin Eckler going in the 101 here. Kind of agree with it. I could see myself mix and match the 101 here. Interesting spot. So I think everyone would kind of be like, "Whoa, Josh Allen falls to 3, like snap, click him." I I don't see like that huge a difference between like Allen and Herbert, and I'm fine if the other guy takes Allen. And okay, I'm kind of fine if this guy takes Allen, right? And he does like Allen Cook, like snap like that. And then we just get left with Justin Herbert plus Keenan Allen from a different draft slot. But because this is a non-batch player who's probably not watching the content, who I've never seen before, I'm going to leave the door open for a Josh Allen plus Keenan Allen start that would be super rare. And it gets taken from us. But I just thought it was, you got to take some chances in these rooms in manipulating the draft room to try and find the GM. And that was an opportunity to do so. Now, is there equal opportunity that if you take Josh Allen there, that he goes ahead and just doesn't go Herbert plus Allen? Oh, yeah, of course, for sure. But I think the chances of that were more likely if you do the Allen first. It's kind of like the Mark Andrews and Lamar. You do Mark Andrews first, and a guy's like a little more scared to click Lamar's name because he knows that combo exists, right? Anyways, we'll go ahead and take Herbert here. Do that kind of chalky pairing, but still a good one. It's a good pairing nonetheless, right? Yeah. Yeah, Blake saying he likes to play it similarly there. Yeah. I think I obviously have no definitive research or whatever to back it up to be like, yeah, that's how you play it. But like in my experience of, call it 50,000 drafts, like yeah, maybe 100, 50,000 drafts at least on this platform. That's how I view it. That's how I view it for sure. Uh, okay. So Baker goes there. Yeah, these are kind of like the rooms that you like to see. Just in terms of like the third quarterback opening up another value spot for us. He's already got a running back. Hmm. What's a rarer combo for Godwin to come back to the 4 or Rashad White? Let's do Godwin. All right, let's do it. I'm looking through this again. Corey's already got a running back. He doesn't need 2 running backs on this roster. He doesn't want to get froze out at wide receiver. Gabe Davis is almost undoubtedly going to be one of these picks for him because he's got the Allen stack going. Let's tempt him with maybe it's a worse play with the Joshua Palmer Q tag, but let's tempt him with the Gabe Davis, Dalton Kincaid from this draft slot and see if we can get Rashad White to come back. Nope, he just times out and auto drafts Rashad White instead. That is also part of the range of outcomes. He might just be a full timeout auto plane right now. Oh well. Well, you love to attempt it. Ooh, third round Herbert with Eckler. I don't have that combo yet. That seems very good. The interesting thing about this contest, right, is huh. Okay. So he's full auto drafting right now. I like to prioritize Kincaid, but I feel like this Gabe Davis break the slate potential we need to click right now. Huh. Let's do it. We can always fall back. The reason I do it is the Herbert one, we can always fall back on the thought processes that we could add Gerald Everett that nobody else is going to want to click unstacked with the Q tag, or you can add Donald Parham to this and you can still end up with that. I mean, even if you get Cole Kmet to come back, you could do like a little like Kmet as the run back kind of play, and he's the only guy you need on Chicago. He does not, but just thinking through some potential sequence of events there. So the shoot the moon play for us here. This guy already took Foreman. So the shoot the moon play for us is we paint the game script of Chargers are winning and you need trailing running back, or we go other game environment. Latavius Murray is the leverage off of Allen and Cook to score. Both extremely viable, both entirely fine. Both we don't have to take yet because he's already taken running back. Money where our mouth is. I think like Kate Otton's a way better projection and way better play. But let's just go ahead and do the Donald Parham as the stack here after he did the double tapping of tight end on the end. Yeah, this feels good. This feels good. And then basically we just have this decision right here. I don't think there's any other reason to go too far down the rabbit hole of some of these other options. The one thing about taking Roshan here is the swappability does open a little bit of leverage for us to get to Darrington Evans if, say Latavius Murray flops tonight, right? He goes 8 carries, 30 yards. He doesn't matter on this slate. If Roshan doesn't play, we do also give us some leverage with this Q tag. Not only do we think he could come in and get like 12 touches and maybe 3 targets, like 12 total touches, and 3 of them coming way of the air, like that sort of thing. And that plays pretty well for a trailing game script in which we've painted with this Chargers one. That plays well in that regard. The other thing is we open up a little bit of Galbrain leverage to a swap option of a super low owned Evans who actually had 14 touches last week. If he can't go, maybe not everyone swaps to Evans. Maybe people swap to Kelly. It's just like we introduce like a little bit of variance, and variance is like our friend on these 2 games. Anyways, pretty Galbrain thought there, but yeah. Yeah, I'm under the impression, GA, that Parham's healthy. Played last game. Practice report suggests he's not on it. So I'm under the impression that Parham's healthy. So yeah. If you have sharper news than that for me, that's how I had been playing it. Holy smokes, we did a 140 solo. Man, I am an absolute windbag. All right. Let's call it right there. Appreciate everyone hanging out. Audio listeners, though, I will not audio upload a solo show that basically pertains to 2 slates that are taking place today. But just to recap, Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert, which I think is going to be the chalkiest pairing in the first round period. Then a Chris Godwin little fall. We took him over Rashad White. That might have been bad. Maybe Rashad White on this team looks a little bit better, and then yeah, we could make it a 2 running back build. Who knows? But Chris Godwin, Gabe Davis, Donald Parham, Big Dick Darnold, and then the Roshan Johnson one, which we alluded to. All the benefits of potential swap, all the benefits of trailing game script and/or pass catching rule. I do not think they phase out Deonta Foreman, but I do think it is a little closer, like ETR is suggesting here, where you know, Roshan right there at the 10.3 with a 19.2 ceiling, and Foreman projected lower than him with the 9.1 and the 17.5. I don't know. I can't imagine they go away from the guy who scored 3 touchdowns last week, but yeah, I do think if you're going to build these 1-3-1s with a late round running back, Roshan looks like the most desirable one to do it with. Latavius Murray goes undrafted in this draft. Anyways, perfect. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Gonna call it a show there. Back tomorrow with Pete. Off and on the clock. If you're not playing on Underdog Fantasy, use promo code MLB at sign up. That'll get you a 100% match deposit up to 500 USD. Evergreen reminder that the this week that the Dog Bowl promo is back, effectively adding basically $7 was Sacrilegious's calculation. Add $7 in EV to each of those $25 entries you throw in the Dog Bowl. Those rooms were rough last night when I was in there. I was battling with the Sharks, but going to soften up over the course of the weekend here when there's a little less hoops to draft and a little more football focused. So be sure to get your entries in there. Same promo where if you do 10 of them to qualify, you will get your money back for every single entry that finishes in the top 2,000, the top 38% of the field. And even a dumbass like myself was able to get I think 4 of those lineups, maybe 5 of those lineups in there. So I got $225 back, something like that, I think last week. Or no, that'd be 125. Yeah, I got 125, 150, I think something like that back. Yeah, 5 or 6 of those entries of mine finished up there. So the old winnings looked a little better after that on the weekend. Anyways, appreciate everyone hanging out. Best of luck tonight in whatever you're playing. The hoops slate there, or this Monday night or Thursday night football times Sunday night football. Back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern for Off and On the Clock on the Underdog Daily channel. Everybody's favorite time of the show, the end. Peace.